Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of our Mental Health Encouragement Time. I'm Pastor Tim, your host, and today we are graciously hosting once again Dr. Margaret Christmas Thomas. And you might recall that she's leads the Townsend Institute of Leadership and Counseling in Concordia, Irvine, California, but she resides here in Texas. She's also the wife of our senior pastor, John Thomas, and she's a mama as well. So we're actually recording this a couple days before Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day, Margaret. And when this comes out, we're going to be kind of reopening here in Texas and probably in different places throughout the country. And one thing I'm seeing as we're just starting to launch, and even while people are home and stuff, I'm seeing blahs. You know, people see I'm more depressed than other times. I'm more down. And, what do we do with that? And why is that really happen? What are some of the reasons people may be feeling depression, especially at a time like this?
Absolutely. And that, Pastor Tim, what you're talking about is so accurate. We have been seeing this across the country. And what happens is this happens very often when people come through immensely stressful situations. They buck up, they bear down, they get through it, and then they start feeling the anxiety or the depression or some of those difficult symptoms after things start easing up. And it can be a little bit confusing because you're like, oh my goodness, they're starting to open things up. I should be a little bit happier. But rather than feeling that happiness and that joy, now their body recognizes that they're safe. And so their mind kind of now has to process and deal with a lot of the emotions that they just sort of stuffed away to keep things going and keep their family going. And it's also kind of a function of the effect that stress preys on the mind, in that we all have a certain amount of genetic vulnerability to depression or anxiety or any number of disorders. And what happens is when we're under stress, those chemicals and that stress can actually activate things that aren't normally a part of our life. It's not enough to sort of push us over the edge. And so now our brain chemistry has been on high alert. And so now we have to slowly and gradually get ourselves away from that high alert state that can be activating some of the things that we might be vulnerable to after something like this.
Wow. The things you described kind of remind me when I read the book of Psalms. There's a guy named David, and he wrote over half the Psalms. And you see him as a strong guy. He's winning all these battles. And you think this guy now has some peace, and he should have it going on, peaceful times. But what you're saying is that when you come out of a stressful situation, some of that resistance that can really hold on. And, his response was definitely to just write it out, to pray, to go to God and just lay it at his feet. There are also some other practical ways that you were sharing as well. So what are some ways that our families and us individually, we can deal with these situations?
That's a great question. And the first thing that you can do is recognize the signs and recognize the symptoms in yourself and in your family. So many times we get in this habit of just trudging through and moving on. And so those feelings that we've kind of pushed down are going to have to be felt eventually, or they're going to come out in other ways, like free-floating sadness or free-floating anxiety. And so take the time to, as you see these signs in yourself and possibly your family members, to kind of work through those feelings. Feel the feelings. And some people, it helps to be really explicit, like to journal and to write down those feelings, or to take a walk by yourself, or anything that you've normally done to sort of cope with, deal with, and work through the things that you're feeling, because you're not going to get away with it. You can either repress it and have it just lingering there, or you can work through it. And I would encourage you to work through it as it comes, because you're just not going to get away with it. You can't just always be happy, always be repressing, because sooner or later it's going to catch up with you in a number of ways. The second thing that I would say is you have to attend to good emotional hygiene. And we've talked about this in other videos, but just to remind you, getting enough sleep, getting exercise, getting out in the sunshine, eating well, having some safe place to have a conversation every day about what you're feeling about and how your day is. I know sometimes we want that to be our family, but you may not have someone in your family that can handle that right now. And so having that conversation with someone who can provide a safe place. And so those are the kind of things I think that are really important for us first to understand, is to recognize those feelings and find your place of just like some good emotional hygiene things that are in your life. But then there's some additional things that you can do. You can also limit your exposure to some of the coronavirus messaging out there. The more that you listen to it, there becomes a point of just complete saturation, where maybe you're perseverating on this and it's coming up in your thoughts and it's coming up in your family conversation. You're going to have to kind of take a step back. You also might even need to divert your thoughts to something like a project. One of my friends did a quilt that she was meaning to do for ages, and that sort of provided her something meaningful for a month or so. Creating a schedule and a routine for your family, or find something, and this has been where I've seen the people who've been most successful dealing with kind of this blah feeling, is find something that absolutely captivates your mind. There are endorphins that are released from that can be very protective with all of these stress chemicals going on and things like that. So anything that can captivate your mind, maybe even some of us have seen those funny COVID videos that they have online. It's just kind of silly and just kind of funny, but as that person's doing that video and kind of creating that funny sort of thing, as you're doing your graduation ceremonies and you're having people come by your lawn, anything that can just captivate you and grab your attention and that you can have fun with.
You know, that's such an important thing. I've experienced that as well. For some reason, our nieces and stuff, they love to show us animal videos, and they're funny, they think. And I'm telling you, for months, I'm just like, okay, they're kind of, but I can't tell you the last couple of days, like we're watching these videos, and I can't believe I'm admitting this in public, but I found a cat video that was funny. I shared it with them. So it does help. It really helps to just kind of laugh and let your mind just get
Yes.
stuff. I love the idea that you also mentioned emotional hygiene, because, you know, people wash your hands. Well, we can't find any more, you know, of the sanitizer stuff, but there's a lot we can do. And it's probably even just as important, if not sometimes more important, to take care of the emotions, what's on the inside as well. So, you know, these are all some great points. And I encourage people, if you didn't get these, it's really easy to just rewind, go back and really listen and maybe write down some of these to one a day or one a week. But what if this isn't enough? What if there's more? We're saying, you know what, we just need some help. Some people I'm hearing, you just feel isolated and they're like, nobody gets me, and maybe I'm living alone right now. What would you speak to them, Dr. Margaret?
Well, the first thing I would say is you're not alone. This is something that mental health folks around the nation have been expecting. We kind of knew with the measures that people were being expected to take for COVID. If you did everything right with COVID, then you made alterations to your lifestyle that naturally affect human beings to make them feel sad. Being isolated from people, everything that you did that was heroic to stop the spread of COVID-19 are all of the things that would affect you to make you sad. First, understand that you may be experiencing this not because you're doing something wrong, but because you did everything right. So hear that. Yeah. Number one. Number two, and this is hard because of the length of time people have been cooped up, is there's a feedback loop that happens in depression and many other different types of disorders, but there's a feedback loop where you get down a little bit, then a negative experience happens, and then because you're down, you see the event in a certain way, you receive it more negative than it necessarily is, and then that gets you more down, and then something happens at the grocery store, somebody grabs the apple in front of you or something and doesn't respect social distancing or whatever it is, and you just can downward spiral. And that's normal. What you have to do is find a way to break that downward spiral, intentionally creating positive experiences, intentionally creating positive routines, intentionally looking after your emotional hygiene. If all of that is not enough, the journaling, the exercise, the routines, all of these kind of things don't work for you, then one of the things that has happened in the field of mental health is the authorities over mental health have made possible something called telehealth that wasn't really used a lot in previous years, but now is widely available through healthcare providers. And so there are hundreds, thousands of mental health counselors who have been trained in telehealth over the last month who are expecting this epidemic of sadness, possibly even depression with people because they know that all the factors are there and they're ready to help you. So don't be ashamed to reach out to your provider to set you up with a counselor or therapist, because they have been enabled to use these telehealth services to reach you in your home, talk to you, help you through it, help you to just kind of walk with you every step of the journey to kind of come back and kind of maybe get your brain chemistry back into a more normal routine.
Amen. I really appreciate that, especially the idea that, there's no guilt in this. If we're doing what we're recommended to do by the authorities, then we're naturally going to have these feelings, and you're not alone. And I really appreciate, you're pointing to the telehealth. There's so many of the professionals out there. I also want to encourage people that you're watching this most likely St. John YouTube or Facebook page or Instagram. I want to encourage you that you can also go to stjohnmansfield.org and click on the front page. It's like, I need help or I want to help. So if I need help, you can put that on there. Those go to me privately, and I'll be able to read that and see, okay, you need help. We can get back with you and get either the right professionals or the right spiritual professionals as well. We have prayer teams, and hey, I want prayer help, because it just helps sometimes not only to have someone listen to you like a counselor would, but also a prayer partner, someone to say, I'm going to lift you before the Lord as well. So there's also, you're never alone. If you have some questions, you want to just get personal with us as well, the email is right there below. You can go to connect@stjohnmansfield.org. You reach out to us if you even have some ideas, maybe on future episodes, some topics that we can do. Just leave that in the chat below or email as well. So, Margaret, thank you so much for being with us today. Again, we hope you have a great weekend. And whenever you're watching this, we hope that your day is wonderful and it's very Jesus-filled as well. Take care.
Thank you.